Ever wanted to just run an army of pure horse archers? Well, now you can. This army is super fast moving, very low upkeep, and very powerful. Now keep in mind, army movement speed on the strategic map is dependent on the slowest unit in your army. So a full cavalry army moves really fast and will outmaneuver other armies. So let's create our horse archer faction. So the very first thing, naturally, we're going to be picking one of the 4 mounts. You can go with any of them. In my case, I'll just go with unicorn. It doesn't matter that much which mount you go for. All 4 are good. So next, we're going to go with our mind traits. Any of these could work, but I guess I'll go with defensive tactics again, or you can just stick with adaptable, and any will work. Next, we will go for culture. Naturally, we can go with barbarian because it gives us our sweet horse archers. And for society traits, now you can go with any society trait. You're not locked in anything. But in my case, I like runesmiths, mainly because we're going to be using a lot of unit enchantments. So, cheaper enchantment upkeep and cheaper enchantment research are both really useful. The +1 rank to shield and polar units are useless because we're not going to be building any of these. And the next society trait we're going to get are fabled hunters. And this does work really well. First, the obvious benefit is ranged units of +1 rank, which is amazing. Of course, we want +1 rank for our horse archers because we're building a lot of them. Next is the +100% resources and clearing an infestation, ancient, wonder, or resource now. This is very useful. So, first of all, we're using an army that's fairly low upkeep. So late game, we really don't need much economy at all. And plus, it's also very cheap to build. So we don't really need really powerful late game economy. What we want is really powerful starting bonuses, because we really want to get the research we need, which we will need about 4 techs before our horse archers are really powerful. And also, we need is building our cities to get the necessary buildings for us to mass produce horse archers, fairly early on in the game. Therefore, the +100% resources from clearing for clearing infestation, ancient, wonder, resource, exactly what we need at the beginning of the game. So I would say these 2 are your best choices. But again, you can go with anything else. Society trait as well. Another advantage of Fable Hunters, you start with an extra range unit, which in our case happens to be a tier 2 unit. Because most people are going to be starting with just tier 1 units. In this case, we get a free tier 2 range unit, which happens to be a mounted archer. Which is, at that beginning of the game, it doesn't have the sort of technology and enchantments to make it super powerful yet, but still, it's still a very good benefit. Okay, so next we're going to go with our starting tomes. Okay, so for the most part, we're going to be starting with Tome of Beasts, because again, we get animal kinship, very useful, because we're going to be only using cavalry. We get the very useful pack leader skill, again, flanker and plus 10% critical hit chance, amazing. We get Call of the Wild. This Call of the Wild costs only 15 mana, yes, 15 mana, and it adds +2 defense and +1 strength to all your cavalries and animals. And we're going to be using an entire army of cavalry. Very powerful. And we also get Summon Wild Animal, which is pretty useful, mainly because late game, I'm going to want to use these to summon them around to help wild animals do scouting. Or you can also use them for pillaging. So if you want to, let's say, pillage a nearby spelljammer, you can summon a wild animal and have them pillage spelljammers. I'm not really sure how a wild animal is pillaging spelljammers, but, well, you can do that. And the alternative starting choice is Tome of Enchantment. And this provides very powerful secret arrows. +1 range to all physical range attacks. Amazing. And also gives you Awakened Tools, which is a pretty useful spell. So you can go with either or. I'd say Animal Kinship is kind of or Tome of Beasts is the better starting choice. But again, your choice. Now, in terms of Champion Wizard King, we're going with Wizard King, mainly because Overchannel is really useful for us. Because again, we have a 50 mana spell that affects our entire army, so we're going with Wizard King for the Overchannel. And let's look at our starting item. So there's the best choice is any of the orbs. So Lightning Orb is good. Orb of Necromancy is good. Now, one thing to know about the staff. Now, the Spirit Staff, a starting point, gives you the useful Restore spell, which is something you're going to go for, which is absolutely a spell you're going to get for your hero. Unfortunately, the Staff of Spirit prevents you from riding a mount, which sucks. And this whole army is about being mounted, so you're not going to go with the Staff of Spirit. So you're going to go with either of the orbs. Okay, so let's look at the tomes. Obviously, we're going to start with Tome of Beasts, and then you're going to go with the Tome of Enchantments, which gives you the very useful Secret Arrows. You also get Awakened Tools, which is a pretty useful sustain spell. Okay, so then at tier 2, the very first thing is
Tome of Amplification for tier 2. So the reason why is 1, amplified arrows. First of all, this increases the damage of your arrows, and it transfers 30% of the damage to another target within 3 seconds. Very, very powerful. It also provides you the very useful Astral Blood, which gives you attunement fortune, which increases critical hit chance when spells are cast. Really good, especially since you're going to be spamming Call of the Wild, which only costs 15 mana. So fantastic. So you're going to be triggering Astral Blood very easily. So the next tier tome you want to get is Tome of Scrying. Now you can kind of pick which one you want to get first. I say Tome of Amplification is better first, mainly because you get 2 useful stuff, where Tome of Scrying really only gives you 1. And it gives you the very useful Guided Projectiles, which it makes base attacks of enchanted units ignore accuracy penalties from the obscuring condition caused by units that are in the way and certain terrain. Very useful. First of all, you're going to be having horse archers together, you can be shooting past each other. So keep in mind, obscuring applies to your own units as well. So when you have a unit in front of another unit, the unit behind it gets obscuring, which is a major problem. And Guided Projectiles ignores that. And obscuring conditions at minus 40% penalty, this is huge, giving your units a lot of extra accuracy. Now, at tier 3, there's really only one sort of crucial tome, and that is the Tome of Vigor. So what Tome of Vigor does is gives you this leader trait, Animal Handler. Now, take a look. While this unit is the leader of an army, animal and cavalry units gain mind control immunity. Yes, an immunity. Not a resistance, an immunity to mind control. And a +2 resistance. Wow, that's really, really powerful. And you also get super growths. And obviously a very useful minor race transformation. And just makes our units tankier. Now, you also get Summon Greater Animal, which is actually pretty useful, mainly because you want something to summon to the field that just, maybe to bulk up your armor a bit. And again, Summon Greater Animal do benefit from all your leader traits and skills that benefit animals as well as cavalry. So it is useful in a pinch. And after Tome of Vigor, well, that's pretty much it. You can kind of go whichever direction you want to. Basically, you want to focus on mana race transformations, which are because you use all your units of your race, and you're going to be needing to focus on enchantments for archer units, because you're going to be spamming horse archers. So, so what can we do kind of after Tome of Vigor? So let's take a look at some options here. One obvious one is Tome of Cycles. And Tome of Cycles gives you Projectiles of Decay, +2 blight damage, which is great. And check it out, you have a 90% base chance of inflicting decay, which is a damage over time effect that prevents enemies from healing. That's really, really powerful. So Tome of Cycles is an obvious choice. Another tier 3 tome you could go for is Tome of Transmutation, which gives you Steel Skin, making all your units just a bit tougher. Now, one thing about the defense, really, I find defense is not that important, mainly because of Call of the Wild, because you're stacking a lot of defense on units. So you don't need to get Steel Skin so early. Obviously, you want to get this eventually, just to make all units tankier, but magic damage is actually a lot more dangerous, especially range magic damage. So you don't need to get Steel Skin so early. So, in terms of tier 4 tomes, well, there's only one that you really want to...
Now, after your tier 3 tomes, you can kind of do whatever you want. One obvious path would be Tome of Paradise to get Gaia's Chosen, and eventually to get Goddess of Nature. This gives you Mass Rejuvenation and Force of Nature. Again, massive damage bonus. But you could do other paths. Another choice you could do is, of course, go back to Tome of Faith to get Healing and Mending Touch, which works, or you can get Tome of Inquisition, which gives you Inquisitor's Zeal, which adds spirit damage and a very impressive +10% on accuracy on physical range attacks. That's very useful. Alternatively, you can go to the material tomes to get Golden Realm, to get Gold Touch, +2 resistance, which definitely helps because, again, this army is very strong versus physical damage due to Call of the Wild, but magic damage can still be pretty dangerous. So Gold Touch having +2 resistance does help. Or you could go to Tome of the Crucible to get Meteor Arrow to increase your firepower significantly. Or, of course, you can backdeck to Tome of Artisan to get Artisan armaments, a very impressive +30% critical hit chance. Or you can even go to Tome of the Doom Herald. Why? To get Joy Siphoners. Again, to steal morale on every hit you make. So there's a lot of different build paths you can do. That's it about the tomes. Let's look at the hero skills.
Now remember, your army is only as fast as your slowest guy. So when you have a horse archer army, you move really, really fast on the world map. Now, a simple question would be, well, don't you need healers? And that's the thing, there's no mounted healers in this game. That's what I thought at first, except for one, which is your leader. Your leader can get all sorts of support skills. So therefore, I just simply build my hero as a full support character. So let's look at some of the skills I get. I mean, Animal Handler, obviously, for the mind control, immunity, and bonus resistance to all cavalry units. Defensive training, and of course, the very useful Restore spell to kind of act as a healer. And if you go to Tome of Faith, which is a really good tome, it also gives you Mending Touch as a leader's skill, which is really powerful. And of course, for signature skills, focus on things like Summon Animal, which is really powerful, and Mass Healing as well. So focus on those. And also, there's also like the Resurrection spell as well. And don't forget hero items. There's items that gives you healing spells. There's items that lets you revive a fallen ally, and against their signature skills that gives revive. So really focus on hero, on full support. Honestly, the hero is a better support than any of the support characters, mainly because he gets more support options here. You can get Mending Touch, you can get Restore. There's all sorts of, and you get AOE healing as well. So focus your hero on pure support, and your horse archers will do all the damage. So what are the strengths of this build? And the very first one is the massive mobility. Being able to traverse the map, being able to outmaneuver enemies, huge benefit. Next is obviously the low upkeep costs, because again, you're using tier 2 units, very low upkeep costs. And these units do have a lot of power and a lot of very, very effective range damage. Now, the disadvantage of this build, first is you're not having a lot of unit variety, and if you're a person that likes to play with a lot of different types of units and you're going to incorporate mythics into the army, it's a lot harder to do. Now, you could obviously add mythics into this army, just to change things up a bit. However, they slow your army down, because your army is only as fast as your slowest guy. So, if you want mythics, it's going to slow your army down, which is a huge problem. I mean, the whole benefit of this build is the fast movement. Another sort of disadvantage is that you're very restricted in hero builds, because you're for the most part always going to be building your hero as full support, with a lot of support skills. So if you want to build your hero as a sort of as a melee damage dealer or something, not really viable. I mean, you could get some powerful spells later on after you unlock your support tree, and get some powerful spells in the battle mage tree just to do some damage. For the most part, the purpose of your hero is to support and buff up your other units.
Now, some people are going to ask about auto-resolve, and honestly, when you have all these upgrades and racial transformations, it raises your army power enough, the auto-resolving won't be an issue. I still fight some battles sometimes, but for the most part, auto-resolve still works. Alright, thanks for watching, and enjoy rampaging the world with your Mongol army.